Hey guys, welcome to Draftsmen. Marshall won't be joining me in this episode, but don't be too sad. I'll be talking with Jeff Watts, the founder of Watts Atelier, and my instructor. I grew up as an artist at the Watts Atelier, and I even taught there for 5 years. So I'm really excited to finally bring Jeff on to the Draftsmen podcast. Jeff will be talking about his own artistic journey, the elusive Reilly Method, and more. All right, let's get to it.
It's the Draftsmen Show. Yeah.
Get a podcast going, and then make an app.
Talking to the mic, Stan.
Oh, are we rolling?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Oh, okay.
I literally looked at the cameras when it said it.
I wasn't rolling yet in my head. I was just talking to Jeff.
Just talking. This is good. This is yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, dude.
Hey, it's been a long time.
Wait a minute, you're not Marshall.
You're like a buff
I got
Marshall.
the beard, yeah, with the beard and all. You know, Marshall's got a beard too, though. So you
Yeah,
know,
you
I
look
feel
like a
I
buff, tan, younger Marshall.
Nice. Awesome. Excellent.
This is AI's interpretation of Marshall.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's good. It's good to be here. It's always good to reconnect with you and see you. It's been too long. You know, we have two different worlds going now, but it seems like we spent so much time together when we were younger that it's really cool.
Well, I was younger.
Yeah, I didn't have this white beard either.
That's true.
Come on. But no, yeah.
Was it black? You didn't have a beard at all.
I didn't really grow it out until recently. I've never really grown a beard out until probably the last couple of years. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear about your beard.
We're gonna just talk about beards the whole time. It's not even gonna be about art. It's gonna be about beards.
Yeah, we start with banter.
Okay.
We have to have some kind of awkward thing in here in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's part of the.
I think that was pretty awkward. The whole beard.
it was
thing
awkward.
Yeah.
We
Was
could
it
also-
awkward enough?
I don't think so. Marshall would have made that real awkward.
Yeah, I'm not Marshall. I'm
I
like,
know you're not.
I'm like an AI Marshall, right? So we're kind of like
You're an AI. No,
Yeah.
you're just a buff tan.
yeah,
young
just
Marshall.
above.
But anyway, yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we just recorded a little session of you talking about lines.
Highly
basics
esoteric, highly philosophical. That's been my
Yeah.
bend lately. That's
I was
where I'm-
like, hey, I have this group of beginner students who want to learn about lines. Can you
Well,
come
you're
in and
lucky.
show them some
you were
stuff?
talking to the wrong guy. I was like, are you sure you want me to talk about this? I know. They're not going to understand one thing I said. They'll be like,
Nah,
what
no.
is up with this guy?
Editing is magic.
Yeah, have it rewrite me, to put it through AI and they can rewrite it.
Everything is AI.
Everything's AI now. Come on, But no, it was good. It was fun to, I don't know. I always enjoy, what you're up to and, it's cool.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
What am I up to?
Yeah, the PROKO thing, baby. PROKO thing, baby. Come on. What do you mean? That's 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
now that was the awkward thing.
that was it. We did it. Okay, now we
Okay.
can move on.
Okay.
Like, what is it? Like 6 weeks ago, you released the Reilly class.
Yeah.
On PROKO, which is
yeah.
awesome. It's been like 10 years.
I know.
Now
We
finally
threw the
got
hat in the
some-
ring.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for
We did
what?
it.
We just celebrated 30. So yeah, it took us a while to get around to doing something for you. No, we when I was started when I don't know, probably a little older than when you started pretty young when you went to our school.
When I started at your
How
school,
old were you?
I was
17?
17 or 16.
Yeah, you were 16, 17. You were
Yeah.
young. I was 18, 19 when I started at the California Art Institute with Fred and Glenn and Morgan and all those guys. So it was the Reilly Method, I don't know, for me was a game changer. I mean, it changed my whole life. And I think you could probably say that it probably changed yours as well, So, I mean, it's done that for a lot of people. And it's not that it's just, I don't know, it's just an amazing system that I'm so happy that it's not going to go by because it was looking like it might,
There's not a lot of resources. Well, this is why I think it was really cool that you released it. You made this class because there's not many resources online that teach Reilly or even just demonstrate Reilly. Because you can find stuff where there's like theories and little passages and the diagrams, obviously, but then like watching someone actually execute it on a figure drawing.
I mean, when you think of Reilly as far as like a rhythmical grid system that can be modified for anything that you paint or draw, I mean, that's pretty all-encompassing, So it's not just everyone thinks figure Reilly, head Reilly. No, it's rocks, trees, animals.
So yeah, actually, can you give us a breakdown? Why Reilly? What Reilly?
Who Reilly?
Who Reilly? Well, Reilly, that's like a one sentence thing, right? Like,
Yeah, good old
he's a
Frank.
dude, he taught a lot of good stuff.
I mean, again, I
Why Reilly?
think the way that we've riffed off of it, because I think it was taught obviously extremely well by a lot of people, but I do think when I think you should try to springboard off of a concept, not just be a parody of it, right? So when I started thinking, well, what can I do to contribute to this? I just fell in love with design and how you design through rhythm and how rhythm is a part of everything. So whether you're designing the new, M3 for BMW or you're designing somebody's nose, it's no different. It's straights and curves, Frenching together in a way that creates beautiful structure and beautiful shape. But, how do you quantify that? How do you break that down into some algorithm? I don't know if it's that simple. I think it's more of a felt sense of design through rhythm and how it orchestrates in form.
Mm-hmm. What's a rhythm?
Well, rhythm would be, again, it would be the linkage of a line that creates a shape. I'm trying to think on the fly here how to define that, because to me, rhythm, it's like, the bottle of water in front of me has rhythm. It doesn't have to be dynamic rhythm like a animated little creature for Pixar or something, but it could be
It could be a straight line. Is a rhythm,
a straight line may be slightly devoid of rhythm. To me, I think of it more as flowing. So if someone just said, what is rhythm? It would be like dance. It would be more the feminine aspect of energy. It wouldn't be, the masculine would be highly structured, highly formulated, and then rhythm is more flowing. It's more elegant. It moves. It's never static. So to me, a rhythmically structured thing, they need both. And you can dominate on one or the other depending on what your stylistic,
So to you, a rhythm can't move in a straight line. It has to flow in waves.
Yeah, I mean, to me, rhythm speaks to movement of some sort. It could be subtle. I mean, it could be a very subtle curve. It doesn't have to be an extreme curve, S curve, C curve. It could be a subtle S curve, subtle C curve. It could be very subtle. But a dead straight line to me would be more structure. The best structure would have rhythm and structure involved in it, the best design. So if you made a car of only straights, it would look pretty boxy. It was just I think it would look cheesy. I would go, nah, I don't like that.
Right, the balance of all those.
Yeah. So we need some kind of curve, right? So it doesn't have to be extreme curve, but the way you French those curves together, and I think car design probably is one of the easiest areas to actually, or the more, to observe it. And, you have two cars out in the parking lot, and you got your little, Lambo, and then you got the block form cars that just look kind of dorky, right? You just look at it and go, oh man, that Lambo, you're like 99.9% of the people would say it looks better. Why? I mean, I don't know. Just straights and curves. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you tell me. Is there a math formula? Or can we run it through the, the golden mean? And I don't know. I mean, there's sacred geometry. There's all that kind of stuff. But when you start looking at form, when you go out to plein air paint or you go draw a figure, you got to sit there and look at it and go, how am I going to take that form, break it down into its straights and curves, put it on a flat surface and make it look really cool? I mean, that's really what we're all trying to do, right? Or whether it's going out plein air painting and say, I don't like the look of that tree. It looks too bulbous. It looks too generic. Okay, I'm going to bonsai it. I'm going to cut a little section here, cut a little section there. But what's prompting you to cut certain sections? How you Frenching those things together? Meaning integrating them in a way that appears elegant. Now, that's where you get into what's elegant? Who's the one that's going to come up with this? This is what good is. Is that like a universal thing, or is it something way more non-tangible? And I have a tendency to think it's more on the later, but I don't know. I like thinking of, that's the stuff I think about now a lot when I'm putting even color notes together rhythmically, and this whole thing of a felt sense, it's so weird to even, it's so woo-woo and new agey, it's got a felt sense to it. Well, what's a felt sense? I don't know. It's like an intuitive sense. It's felt. You feel into it. So when someone says, how do you do color? I say, well, it's through felt sense. I don't really think about color. I don't ponder it. I don't think of it mathematically. I don't sit and think about the color wheel and the Munsell wheel and, is this harmonizing off of this? And it's a tertiary relationship. I don't think of any of that. Never.
Yeah.
Never. Well,
you did.
I never did.
Intuitive sense?
No.
Well,
when I was early on, I always just felt color. I don't like thinking color. I never made sense to me. It was never read a book on it. Was never interested in reading a book on it.
So what's analogous and what the complement of
I do
green
it.
is,
I couldn't tell you intellectually what I was doing. I just know that it feels good to me and it looks good to me.
No, but I mean, you can explain it to a student if they're like, what's a complement?
Well, that's the reason. I mean, again, there were students that didn't learn color from me very well because they weren't intuitively able to understand it and wanted to learn it through mathematics, which, again, I don't know, if you go back to Claude Monet, you'd say no good colorist was ever trained through theory, period. End of story. Just that's the way it is. You either get it or you don't. If you don't get it, it's a rough road. You can try to intellectualize it. Will you ever be a natural colorist? Probably not. Could you do decent?
Can't do both?
Well, I mean, you could be decent color, but you're not going to be like a Fetchin, a Monet, those kind of colorists, which are bending, breaking rules all the time, right?
But I mean, a lot of concepts can go that way where you can start by studying them intellectually. And then once you understand them, you completely disregard all the stuff.
Well,
but
no,
it's
I think that's the normal path. I think color is one of the few areas that I would say is best taught by example. Like, meaning you're a really good colorist and I sit down with you and you're in my class and then you do something, I come in and do it in front of you and you look at it and say, well, that looks way better than what I'm seeing. Why is that? I want to, should I paint what I see? And I said, well, you could, but there's probably 100 different versions of it that probably will look better that you could make up.
Okay.
I mean, you can paint it literally if you want, but at the end of the day, I don't know if it's good. I personally would like to paint it the way I would like to see it, not the way I'm seeing it. I will respect what I'm seeing. I'll intellectually banter with it a little bit and have some dialogue with it, but I don't necessarily have to be literal with it. Right. So that's where I think the felt sense comes in. That's where you would start to go, okay, well, what feels right to me? Because, I'll reverse warms and cools on a painting all the time. It's like, it can't happen. It really can't do that, but it looks better to me. Like I might put a minty green highlight on a warm surface. Couldn't get that. It's not going to happen. But I mean, like if the flesh tone and I might put a mint green on the forehead. Well, there's no mint green on that forehead. I mean, it wouldn't go towards that, but there's a certain kind of harmony off of it that I think looks really appealing to my eye aesthetically. And I would override the intellectual wanting to make it right for what feels better. So it's more of a felt sense of what I want to do. And it doesn't mean I don't respect. I mean, that's why you train so hard like you do, or I do, or anyone, is so that you can free yourself up. But when I used to teach color, you learned, I mean, a lot of stuff, took a lot of classes with me. And mostly it was, me leading by example, either painting on your painting and fixing stuff that and then having you look at that and say, oh yeah, I do like that better. I'll do more of that of my own in the future. And that would cultivate your sensitivity to color through another person's felt sense versus like saying, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to run out all these charts and drop chroma on them to infinitum. And we're going to do it with everything on the color wheel. I'm like, dude, just give me a Norman Rockwell and let me try to copy it. There's a million color. I did all those charts, one painting. It was a lot more fun. I got to paint ahead. It was cool. And I got to steal, it's like, I'd rather do it that way personally or whatever. I don't want to run out all these hyper intellectual aspects of color when to me, it's kind of beating around the bush. It's like, let's just get it. It's like, do you want to go in the kiddie pool or do you want to jump in the deep end and just start swimming around? There's different philosophies. Some people really need to start in that kiddie pool. And I think that's okay. I'm just not the best person for that. Right. So I would be like, well, I'm probably not the best guy to learn from in that regard. So you'd want to go over to something, and everyone's kind of needs to find their sweet spot for learning. And I think for me, as I've gotten older and more mature with it, I've also learned to value, okay, what can be taught, what should be taught, and what really can't, or what should be more felt, or what should be taught through more intuitive means. I don't know.
I think it's both, though.
Well, it is. I'm not saying
everyone learns at different balances of the two.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying, I don't know where we were even going with this. This is one of our
it's a side trip.
This is it's
fine.
Yeah. No, that's kind of, that's what I know you're, that we're just here to chat. Like, to me, it feels like we're just talking shop. I haven't talked to you in a long time about much of anything because you're so busy and I'm so busy, and we've kind of have these different parallel lives going. But I always enjoy talking to people that I've known for a long time about this stuff, because you can't just sit and talk with a lot of people about this stuff.
So the way I explain rhythm, tell me if I'm completely out of line here.
Good start.
Is
that's wrong? No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry, guys.
I'm just kidding.
Refund. Just support at PROKO.com. I'll give you a refund. So the way I explained it, and I'm talking more specifically about like figure drawing or rhythm is something that's more visually, you could actually see it, where it's a connection between visual elements on the surface. Or it could be a 3D sculpture, and it could be a 3D rhythm between things you can actually see, whereas gesture is more felt. You can indicate the gesture of an arm with like some squiggly, like flowy stuff that doesn't actually represent what's on there. It represents more of the pose, the gesture, what it communicates. Whereas the rhythm, you're literally trying to find connections between the shapes, like how the muscle flows into another muscle and then how it goes into the tip of the finger or whatever. Like they're very much related, like overlapping concepts.
Yeah.
But to me, to kind of feel the difference between the two.
I think like when we were doing the course that we put on the Reilly course that we put on, it was really like 4 different guys' interpretations from our school that have done it, mostly trained with me for, 10, 15 years. Eric's 25 years. So you're looking at like Brian approaching it through mannequinizing and simple block form rhythm and structure.
3-dimensional rhythm.
Yeah. So it's kind of like more sub-rhythm, heavy structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is rhythm in structure, right? But but he's more on the straight line side of it. And then you get into like Eric, who's starting to open it up more into, okay, how do we understand how we take the insertions and origins of the muscles? But again, you have rhythm in a tree trunk, but it's not muscle rhythms, right? But it's still rhythm.
But
and
it's
a rock has
things
rhythm.
You see, they're visual rhythms between the shapes of the tree trunk, right?
Yeah, well, it's how they connect, right? So it's, do I like that connection, or does that connection too curvy, or does it need a straight injected somewhere in there? So that's where the nuance comes in, where you start to actually, again, draw more what you want to see versus what you're seeing and what you know. Because you obviously know it's a tree, it's an oak, right? And then I'm seeing it this way. That's the way that oak's expressing itself in its fruition of being or whatever. And I need to now interpret it. But do I like its way that it flows? I don't have to. I have my own right to like whatever I want. So I go, nah, I think I'll put it straight here and I'll cut this here and I'll go there. So now you go into the design aspect of it, thinking about rhythm, respecting structure, and balancing those two to make a cool looking version of that oak tree. Or that rock pile, or that guy's arm, or the knee, or the, whatever. So I think when you get into rhythm and the way that I think it's best taught, you start with structured stuff like what you're doing and what we're doing as far as like, okay, we're going to lay down these rhythm lines, and this is the basic abstraction. Now we're going to go.
You just use the word abstraction.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the abstraction is very connected to the Reilly method, because Reilly created a rhythmical grid system based on the muscle insertions and origins and the bone structure, right? So it's how those play with each other.
It's like a map of the rhythm.
It's like a GPS system for drawing, right?
Oh, the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the head, the body, but then you could also go and say, I'm going to create a Reilly version of a tiger, a Reilly version of a cape,
right?
Whatever, of an oak tree, right? So I could literally Reilly out the whole planet, right? Everything you draw, cars, planes, buildings are all imbued with form and rhythm. And what I think Reilly did so well, and what we kind of teach at the Watts Atelier, I mean, again, which is what you went through, and now you've kind of done your own thing with it, and everybody's kind of doing their own thing with it, but it's the basis of it is, and I think the brilliance of it was creating an organized system of thinking that teaches you how to think in rhythm, which you can then take into anything. So it's not a rigid system. It's a very liberating system, right? And a lot of people think of it like, oh, I need to memorize this, and that. No, you start that way, but then you...
Yeah, all of these things are not rigid.
No, not
Even
at all.
like Loomis, which feels like it's very rigid, because you have like a very specific measurement of things.
Yeah.
People who don't use it properly are way too specific with it. They don't know how to take the Loomis and then fit it onto any head shape. Like, it doesn't have to be a perfect ball. This guy's head is very tall. Don't make it a ball.
Make it an
stretch
egg.
it out a little bit. Put
the
the jaw on wider and make it more square. And it's not perfect thirds. Make the top taller.
It's just a starting point to get you out of the chutes or out of the gates in a solid. So again, there's nothing more perplexing than taking some new, someone who barely knows how to hold a pencil and say, just go at it or whatever. You got to give them these parameters from which to play. And then once they get that, then you can start opening up into these more abstract concepts, building them on more feeling and more esoteric concepts, right? Because ultimately, the underpinnings of all good representational art are going to have a lot of structure in it. That means a lot of thinking, a lot of thinking. But the ones that fascinate me are the ones that have transcended the thinking into feeling. And that could be a Bernini, which is highly technical, or even a Bruguero. I wouldn't say that resonates as much with me as pushing past the bounds of the organized thinking process of more in your mind thinking and painting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you get into like a Fetchin or a Mancini or even a Cornwell. And then, Cornwell's scooping up 6 different colors and then pulling a swipe with it. You mean to tell me that you have some intellectual knowledge of what just is going to go down when you do that? It's impossible.
It's intuitive at that point.
Well, but then you got to riff off the intuition.
It's intuitive about knowledge of what looks good and then also feeling of what you're trying to communicate.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. But that's where the magic is. But trying to teach, like that to me is unteachable. It is a felt sense of...
It's trainable.
I don't even know if it's trainable.
Really? You can't guide someone to be able to
I want you to
build that
I want
skill?
you to randomly pick up 7 colors on your palette right now and spin it on a painting and then tell me what value is going to go.
Maybe coachable. Maybe I'm trying to figure out.
I think it's best.
You did it. You coached,
I did it through by reverse engineering people through trial and error, taking someone like Cornwell or Fetchin and saying, broken color. Wow. Okay, so he couldn't even duplicate this stroke. Possible. Right. So there's no way to do a forgery of a painter like that.
Right.
So you could make it look enough to where someone would think it was that guy painting it. And that's really what you're going after when you go into those kind of more esoteric. And this is where I spend a lot of my time now because you get bored after a while with doing technical stuff. You're just like, dude, I've done
There's a lot
of
of jazz.
I've done just so much. And whether it's why listen to Miles Davis riff or whatever, any of these guys that have been doing it for so long, they're just like, okay, now forget everything and let's have some fun with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where everyone wants to be. And I think everyone wants to transcend the 10 or 15 years of hard training that it takes to be able to open that door. Some people never will open that door simply because I think they won't do the proper training to be able to open it. So again, I came up, I don't know when I came up with that, part what you see, part what you know, part what you wish you saw. It sounds so simple. So, Sargent's going to be predominantly what he sees and what he knows with a little bit of what he wants to see because he doesn't manipulate that much. Frazetta is going to be 90% what he wants to see, a lot of what he knows, and not much of what he sees at all because he's making up most of it. So he's not seeing anything. It's coming out of his head. So he's going to be heavy on the back end of that equation. Sargent's going to be heavy on the front end of that equation. They're both excellent painters. They just chose to use that equation differently. In order to open up the third door, you've got to commit to memory, copious amounts of visual memorization in order to be able to look at something and say, I don't like it, and I'm going to do this to it because it should be this, and I know it should be that intellectually, but I'm going to make it look like this because I think it looks cooler.
Yeah.
And so that's a hard thing to do,
Well, one thing that makes it hard for people starting out is that they also just don't have very strong opinions about what looks good.
Well, yeah, and that's why you don't hit them with that stuff. I mean, you just say, hey, you're stuck in the first 2 doors for the next 10 years probably. So that third door, I'd love you to go there because that's where you want to go because that's all the fun guys you see doing all this cool stuff, whether it's Houston or any of these guys, right? They're on the third door. They're throwing crazy stuff at it. John Asaro just making up color and riffing, but he knows his values and edges and drawing so well that he can do that and it comes out great. And you do it and it looks like a mud pile and it just looks terrible, right? Yeah. So I think that's the dialogue I've had more and more. It's harder and harder for me to teach fundamentals because my head's totally in that back end part. And so when I go to do fundamentals, I mean, it's literally like taking a step back 30 years into my training and going,
well, your mind just naturally keeps jumping right back.
Well, and it wants to keep growing. It wants to keep moving forward, right? Yeah. And that's natural, I think, for any artist to say. And I think that's why a lot of people, as they get more advanced into like even maybe Fetchin wasn't maybe the greatest teacher, right? Because he wasn't really interested in teaching somebody how to break a head into thirds. But you can't just start somebody coming into your class. You got to do that, right? And so you have to do that with your program. And like when I was designing the Watts Atelier online program, it was all about like, okay, it had a fundamental component, but I wasn't I'm ridiculously strong at that. Is my fundamentals are advanced, right? So we finally moved.
The quote.
Yeah, we finally moved.
My fundamentals are advanced.
We finally moved like my quick sketch over into master classes because it was ridiculous. This
is the name of the episode.
Yeah,
advanced fundamentals.
Advanced fundamentals. Oh, stand. But no, it was it was funny. So we had a whole other group of guys that even at the school where I would replace myself with people that were a little bit more just more simple. With their thinking, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a beautiful style of working in the beginning. And occasionally I'll go back and revisit different aspects of it, but it's just, it's better to have a layering system of people owning that part of their teaching when they're at that level, because it's just sincere at that point, right? Not that I can't go back and do it, but it's like what's the point? At some point.
Focus on your strength.
Yeah.
When I was going through the Watts program, I very much enjoy the strengths of every instructor. Like I would go to Eric. He explains everything exactly how you want it to be explained. When you're someone like me who needs it explained first, and
it's good.
Then start jazzing a little bit. And then I go to you in the afternoon, and you're doing the same thing, but you're not explaining it. You're just freaking showing it. This is how you do it when you actually understand it.
Yeah.
And it was a really good balance of the two.
Yeah.
That worked.
And we still have, it's neat that it's never lost that. Cause I always saw, I think one thing, it's so important, whether you're developing the program like you're doing or the one that we did or are doing, is that you know where your strengths are truly, and that you fill in those gaps with people that are better apt to fill those in than you are, right? You don't, it's not an ego thing. It's just like, no, I did that, but that's not my forte, and you have to be good at almost everything to be professional. So you do have to have sound fundamentals, and you don't just jump past them. I mean, but I've also seen people that really can't articulate fundamentals very well that are good at it, so there's always that art of like communication, nonverbal and verbal, and also through, demonstration of your concepts of what you're doing. Like, so I always look for people because all the people in our school come out of our school. Like, it's all the teachers are from within the program. So when you're picking somebody, you're looking at that person saying they have a really unique gift for that particular area. Like Brian's really good at fundamentals. He always has been, that's just what he does. And I've always recognized that in him. And I'm like, dude, because his interest is so in it and pure, it's like, well, that's the guy that should be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Not me. I mean, I can do it, but mine is more in these other more esoteric areas. You're not going to see those guys probably talking about that stuff because it's, it requires it's just a different way of approaching your art. I think now I spend more time, because I think you do run up against that wall after 30, 40 years of doing it. If you started as young as like you did or I did, you're still relatively young when you're 40 years in. I mean, 50 years old, you still have maybe another 20, 30 years of executing. So is it wash and repeat with fundamentals? Or is it like, okay, now I've got to like literally break loose of that if I want to have something really unique to say and really go into more no man's land where it really isn't about, it's about feeling. To me, it's all now about, can I be truly honest with my feelings on this painting? And can I channel that? And can I utilize that to create an image that's truly impactful? Not just technically proficient, because I'm just not interested in just technically proficient anymore. I mean, like I'll do a beautiful eye on a painting and just stick my finger in it or run a palette knife through it for just, I don't know, just doesn't feel like what I want, so let's see what that does. And then I'll go back and reconstruct it afterwards and see what of that randomness that was created I can leave that I never would have premeditated been able to do or even thought of doing. So and that's just like so counterintuitive for most people. It's like, dude, you just spent 3 hours on that eye and you're gonna stick your finger in it? Excuse me? It's like, yeah. Or palette knife, I don't know, something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, it's just like speaking, right? We talk about how it's a visual language. So there has to be a balance between the way you communicate has to have enough overlap between how other people communicate so that people can understand you.
Exactly.
But then it also has to be enough of your own unique thing to where it's not boring. You actually are worth listening to because it's unique.
Yeah. It's like life coaching for artists, It's like, to me, choosing to be an artist as a vocation is an unfortunate predicament, but it is like if you have to monetize it, right? Because it really complicates it a lot. I mean, to say, I got to make everything for money, or it has to sell somehow, or it has to move product or sell a product. It's just, to me, it's never what I felt in my heart was what I wanted to do with my art. That was the furthest from my interest. And so as I get further along to where at some point in my life where hopefully if I play my cards right, I don't have to monetize it anymore, then what does it look like? Then what does the art really look like? Because that's where I really wanted to be.
What does yours look like?
I don't know yet.
Is that what you're doing now?
I'm heading there. Yeah. I mean, that would be my goal, would be say, I don't want to ever sell another painting if I ever again. I could care less. I really could. It's more about just a sincere honesty of expression, whatever that looks like at that time, that can propel maybe me to a higher level of learning about myself through my art, so it's more of a self-realization, mindfulness practice that I happen to be doing through my art because it's the easiest, well, not easiest, it's my most direct connection to source, whatever you believe source to be. Art is that direct conduit and connector. always has been, probably always will be. And it's a great, music's the same way, acting similar. All the arts kind of, I think, play in that domain of that, you know, what is it to be alive? Where are you channeling this from? Where is it coming from? Is it all energy? Where is it moving from? Where is it coming to? How's it coming through you? How are you using it to produce something creative? And so that's the really, I mean, to me, that's the real game right there. It's way more esoteric. It's very difficult to, you're not going to teach a class on it probably. You could probably teach some kind of philosophical class on it. It'd be more like an Alan Watts dissertation on, you know, what creativity is and art. You know what I mean? It'd be him like just riffing like he always does. And he just goes off on these like crazy tangents that are really fun to take the journey with him on them, you know, when he's talking about stuff, because it's deep thinking and it's deeply felt by him as to what, you know, what it means to be alive and what it means to create and what is creation and who's creating really. And so I, you know, in the beginning, it's just like, dude, I just need to split a head into thirds and make it look like a freaking head. You know, I mean, that's, I mean, and that's great. I mean, that's where we all started there, you know.
We were all 2-year-olds trying to put words together.
Yeah. And I drew, you know, when I was in first grade, I got punished for doing that, right? I got held back in first grade for only drawing. I wouldn't do any math, no English, no nothing. Couldn't threaten me, couldn't do anything. I could care less about that stuff. I was like, not going to do it. Not going to do it. You can say whatever you want, you know, I'm not doing it. And I already had that kind of temperament when I was like in first grade. I was like that, you know, so that, you know, but that's the kind of headstrong aspect too, to, you know, like being born and knowing what your entelechy is, you know, knowing why it is you're here on the planet and what you're here.
6 years old. You're like, I am here
to do this, you know, and you guys are telling me I'm supposed to be doing that and I'm not having it.
I'm not going to learn English.
No. Yeah. No, but anyway, and then later I became an excellent student when I actually kind of got it. But it was how they went about teaching art as an afterthought. It was like, you know, when you're a kid, they'll let you do it because it's what kids do. And there's a point at which, I don't know, 4th, 5th grade, hey, you got to start getting serious about this other stuff. That stuff, that was good when you were 2 or 3, but nah, that's not, you know, yet the whole world runs off of the thing that they're telling you not to do, right? I mean, it's like, that's what you drive, that's what you wear, that's what you live in, that's what you watch, that's the movies you go see, that's the kids play, that's the music you listen to. All the enrichment in life comes from the one thing.
All the things we enjoy.
Yeah. They're telling you, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
That's not the thing you want to be doing. You want to go over here and you want to learn this really control, you know, which there's nothing wrong with that stuff either. But it's like, if you're that kid, and I think that was a big motivation with me wanting to start the school originally, was that how misunderstood, even, you know, when you're in that like really tumultuous period of growing up as an adult, where you're like maybe like late teens, early 20s, and you really button up against that, oh man, I got to go with my plan B, which is go to college and become an accountant because I can't do this art thing. This thing, everyone's telling me this is no way this is going to pan out, you know?
Well, that's the test.
I know. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Many will be called, but few will answer. But I mean, like, I remember when all you guys came in originally, like you at 16, I mean, you had a very unique scenario because your parents were very receptive to you doing what you do, right? So were mine, you know?
Yeah, but
I mean, did you run into any of that when you were?
I mean, yeah, I mean, they were very supportive and they understood that also I'm actually just not going to do anything that I don't want to do.
See, you had a little bit of that.
They knew that they had no choice other than to just be supportive. But they would constantly tell me like, but are you sure?
I know, but
because you know it's going to be hard to actually make it work. And it was a constant reminder of like, yeah, but are you going to make any money?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I will.
Yeah. I mean, again, I even saw that in you when you were 16. I mean, I felt like, okay, this kid's going to do something. I'm not sure what, but he'll do something really cool. I mean, it's just an innate, because you can see it in others when you possess that, right? I mean, that's what, and it's those, you know, you have to go against that, that grain in order to produce anything great. It doesn't, and again, it gets into such it's such a fascinating area of study for me, is the nuance of, if you're, a really incredibly good teacher, you're going to be very interested in the people you teach and how to get to them and how to teach them for who they really are. You're not trying to imprint on them necessarily a stylistic way of working. It's more give them enough tools to awaken with substance, because you know that the world that we live in does require things to look good. I mean, if you want to make a living at it, right? It's very seldom that I had a client that said, make it look really crappy and we'll pay a lot of money for it. Ever. Never. It was always like, they didn't care how you made cool stuff, but it better be cool to sell the movie, the book cover, the car. I don't care what it is. They want that, but they don't know how to ask that from you, but they know it when they see it. And if they don't see it, they have you do it over, or they don't pay you. They just say, no, sorry, not working. And so that's what, I mean, you want to give people, as a student, you want to give them enough skills to where they're going to be able to do that. You're not trying, I mean, are you ever going to get a Frazetta out of teaching? Maybe 1 in a billion, you know, I mean, or any of those guys, you know? So for me, it's like, yeah, you might, but better to prepare them just to be able to survive. Yeah. And then if you do have some that journey that far with you, then you can open up that kind of dialogue about, okay, let's see where we go from here. Let's see what you can now bring to the table that's uniquely a gift of some sort, maybe a gift for color or a gift for composition, storytelling, a gift for, you know, watching Eric come into fruition as a young student that was older than you when he started, but he was 22 years old, probably 21, 22. Now he's been with me 25 years, right? And he's doing everything he ever wanted to do in his profession at an elite level. But that dialogue was so slow to evolve because it just required so many pieces. And to have gone through it with him the whole time and have him always been with me, it's just, he's one of those few people I can say, damn, that's the way I had hoped it would work, you know, for everybody. But that guy, he did it and he understood and he never lost, you know, he always stayed on point, you know, and he's still on point in my opinion. And it's just cool to see. It's just like, damn, you were similar that way where, I mean, but you were a little bit more rogue, right? So you had a strong inner knowing that you want to do something that's personally you know, it felt like to me, like, you know, you had something in you that wanted to express itself as your vision of what you wanted to do. With you, it was more just cultivating a strong sense of fundamental foundational components so that you could then riff off that to do whatever you wanted to do with it, which you did, you know? So everyone's different. You know, some people will stay with me for many, you know, long time because the structure of it is such that it's very conducive to, it's like being an athlete that happens to, you know, work at the local gym and you have access to all that equipment and stuff all the time. And you're going to always have to stay in shape. So do you want to start a gym or just hang out at the gym and then go do your thing, you know, and go become a professional while you're still training at the gym you went to? And sometimes that kind of works good too. So it's kind of fun to see. I don't know. For me, it's been really such an interesting transition to grow as a teacher and as an artist, and then still be cultivating other teachers and artists. You know, it's always been a very double-edged sword. You know, it's always a very interesting, you know, dynamic.
You're past the point in your career where you're taking on clients and doing stuff like designing.
I still like to do stuff, but it's more selective.
But like you're saying how you want to do just the things that you want to do now, right? And you're moving to, if I don't have to make money off of it, how would I paint? So as you do that, are you still thinking about how others will perceive your paintings, what they will get from it? Or are you just trying to express whatever it is that you're, and it's like, it doesn't matter what other, because you're not trying to sell it. So
it's definitely not. I mean, there'll always be probably a part of me that it's so entrenched in our culture, you know, I think here, especially, you know, where it's hard to get that out of your system, you know, like not caring about in some capacity what people think about what you do. You know, there's parts of me that really don't care. And then there's parts of me that do. And those parts are complex pieces that we're putting together through different periods of my life. Right. So those parts don't just go away, you know, best to acknowledge them and allow them to exist, you know, in your system. But when I look at it and kind of go, which ones dominate now? Right. They're less dominant than they used to be.
What's the most dominant purpose for your creation?
To enjoy life and the things I love around me. Like, you know, to me, I looked at like a lot of the greatest painters that I admired, and their interpersonal lives were disastrously bad. Most of them, you know? And that's not something I envy. You know, I don't want to sacrifice 3/4 of my life, even for my art, and be miserable in every other area. So I think Sorolla probably was the one that probably resonated me most with having the Quan, you know, if you remember Jerry Maguire, where he wanted the money, the fame, everything. He wanted the whole enchilada, the football player that was in that.
Yeah.
Right. And so I look at, Soroya, and my understanding, I haven't done a huge amount of research on his actual upbringing and all that, but I thought he was an orphan when he was young. But he, he just had this incredible love for his wife, his life. He made tons of money, his opulent freaking studios. When you see him, you just go, oh my God, and the passion with which he painted. It seemed like, he had this incredible love affair with his wife, his kids, his family, his art, made the money, had all that. He had the whole enchilada. And you look at other people and you just don't see that. I don't see that in a lot of the artists. It took so much for them to be who they were as an artist that they really sacrificed a huge amount of their own interpersonal life and their relationship with their spouse and their kids for that. And I never wanted that, right? If that what it meant to be like a Soroya or to have to do that, then I probably chose a while back that wasn't. I think I can do some really elite stuff, and I have a lot of elite ability in certain areas. And maybe there were areas at times that I was truly masterful at, like quick sketch, where I'd say, yeah, I think I truly mastered that at one point. But the minute you stop doing it for any amount of time, you no longer really can claim that mastery. It's a very fleeting thing. So when someone says a master, I go, master of moments.
Other than yourself at a younger point, who do you think is better than you at quick sketch right now? Other than you 10 years ago.
I don't know. I'd have to look around it. There's a lot of
No, seriously though. I know you're not going to answer that. You're going to sound conceited.
I really always sincerely, I think the thing that got me into the Reilly Method in the first place was watching guys, some of the old guys from my, Mark Westemo and Andrew and all these different guys doing these little 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute drawings, one after another, that were just stellar. We had like Don Greer and a bunch of older guys from back then, Greg Pro, Tony Pro's brother, and, a bunch of these guys that were the precursors to me coming to the school. Morgan Wesleyan, one of them, his early quick sketches are insane. Not many people see him, but
no, I don't think he shows them. Why not?
I don't know, but I have a binder of them.
You have what?
I do have a binder of them.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
What the hell, man?
I know. I've been holding off on you.
God,
but
show me?
No.
I've literally no.
Someday. No, Stan.
Anyway, drawer. No one can enjoy this.
No, they were just little like.
Damn it.
Burn them when I get home.
We'll negotiate later. But anyway, no, that was the thing that when I saw those, I was like, this system is like insanely amazing, that you can take such a complicated thing as the human form and break it down into a 3-minute articulation that's that good consistently. It just blew my mind. I wanted to know that system. I was like, what are these guys doing? It looked like David Blaine drawing or something, I'm like, are you guys going to levitate or what's going on? So to me, it was like, that was the thing that really, I think, concretized my love of the Reilly Method. And I was like, I have to. So I really set out, but I was not very good at quick sketch in the beginning. I wasn't. I remember calling my dad and telling him, I'm the worst person in class. Like the first day I had quick sketch, I was
on the first day, yeah, I'm the worst person.
No, when I went to school, I thought I was pretty good going into.
And then the second day, you're like, Dad, I did it.
No, it took me literally decades of doing that.
No, it didn't.
I taught that class over 100 times, 3 months a pop.
Yeah, and then you were like 19 then.
No, I'm talking about now. Like to do what I do now, and to get to where I even saved a full page of quick sketches was probably 15 years in. Before I ever saved a whole page, because that one wasn't so good. That one sucks. That one's not, oh God, that was not good. That one's awesome. So I'd either cut them out or there were a handful, but to get like a full page consistently, because that's how I use it now. If I go, how rusty am I? Or how far off point am I? All I have to do is go into quick sketch class and it'll tell me instantaneously how far off I am from where
your timeline's
should
off.
be.
I'm gonna ask Eric to
what?
Well, because he was there with you, right, when you first started teaching. And how old were you when you first started teaching?
I was 22.
22.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not 15 years in, but I'm going to ask him, at what point did you get good enough at quick sketch to where you're filling up pages? Pretty sure it
took a long time. It did. It took easily a decade. It did. I'm telling you, my first quick sketches were not good. And if you look at Glenn Orbick's first quick sketches, like the quick sketches he taught me, he was the king of just efficiency, simplistic, no flash, no anatomy, just really simple concepts. Shade with the form, go with the form. It was so bare bones. that it's like absolutely the polar opposite of how I do quick sketch, you know.
So what was it that? Okay, so let's just pretend that you're right. Let's just say it took 15 years. Right?
Yeah.
What were you doing in those 15 years to get to that?
Studying
level?
other people's quick sketches, copying them,
That's
copying
number one,
photos, master studies, and photo work, interpretation first. So I would maybe warm up with some of those old pictures I took of Mark's stuff back when I worked for him or when I worked with him. All those guys, I used to photograph their pads. I would photograph the walls. I'd photograph everything I could find, sit down with it, draw it, take photos that were similar, try to mimic that look, go into class, try to do it, come home, draw some Frazettas, go in. Like before class, like on Saturday morning quick sketch, I would stay up studying Frazetta the night before so that when I came into class, I would be ready to go. I was serious. I mean, I was serious about trying to get exceptionally good at that. And I just loved it. I mean, it was a sincere love of it. I wasn't because, you know, I mean, what's quick sketch really gonna, I mean, it's the core of a lot of things. It's, you know, quick analyzation skills, intuitive design, intuitive anatomy, figure invention. So you're embodying in one technique so many weather vanes for where you're really at in your training that if you listen to it, it's an amazing resource. But a lot of people don't like it. It's too hard. Don't see the value, the depth of it. And I still will teach it. And I'm not bored with it, and I still have a lot to learn from it. And I still don't feel like, oh man, I got that thing. You know, you can become a bad parody of yourself very easily and just say, you know, I'll mimic what I used to remember doing. But, you know, it's such a dynamic process that you have to be fully present. And the minute you aren't, you will put a bad stroke down. So now I don't even really erase anymore. I just try to make every stroke count, and I try every stroke stay. And I don't. It's like sketchbooking. I don't remove pages. I try to not like erase anything like a drawing. I just build the whole page. Mm-hmm. So now when I come in, the whole class is on one page. The 3s, the 2s, the 5s, the double 5. So it's like 50 different drawings, all of which you hope, like inking, you just don't mess up. Or if you do, you don't let people know it. I mean, again, it's just, and it's not like an ego thing. It's just, that tells me, oh, dude, you're on point. You know, your mind's firing good, your hand's firing good.
Your beard is just trimmed perfectly.
Would you just my God.
On point today.
Very coiffed. Very coiffed. That's what you do. Handlebar. Got to get the handlebar mustache going. No, you're good. I know. It always goes back to the beard now. It's always going to go back to the beard.
Wake up, paint a Soroya, trim the beard, have a snack, do a fashion study.
There you go.
There's a typical.
No, you know, now I just spend a lot of time, I do spend a lot of time, I think, really looking more at myself and, you know, areas that I'm hung up on that are preventing me from being able to express more intuitively. Just, you know, different aspects of just being in this body on this planet as a human, the kind of trials and tribulations and stuff you'll go through that will leave impacts on you that are, you know, difficult aspects of self, you know, whether they're traumas or whatever, that need to be healed in order to be able to be more fully you, to be able to paint more fully you. So that's the honest truth. It's not fun stuff. It's you know, it's not stuff that everybody wants to go dig into, but it's like at some point you just realize, you know, and maybe that's I've always been a really like intense, serious person, right? So, and it's funny because that's why I always appreciated about you. You know, you have such a, you know, kind of.
I have no intense serious.
No, no, I don't pick that up on you. I don't really pick that up with you. That's why I think we got along so well when we were younger. I mean, you know, it was just like we did.
I would keep trying to push it farther.
I know. And that was fun to banter with you about that stuff because it's like I have this silly serious side and you have this real slapstick side. So it was always like, I don't know, it was fun to have you around the school because it was really kind of a nice breath of fresh air. Because, I mean, but again, I think the school, the way I built it, was the byproduct of that seriousness and that reverence for the technique. You know, underneath it all was that I just really have a sincere love of learning, but also imparting learning, but also the Reilly Method as a way of learning art and what it's done for me and what it's done for some of the other people I've seen that have actually springboarded off of it, whether they still use it that much or whether it was just a part of their formation of how they think, you know? And I think all of us that really went on that journey, including the ones that originally went to the school I went to, are some of the most exceptional executors out there living today. You know, whether it's Morgan Wes Lane, or any of those guys. They're all over the place too. And they're in a lot of industries that you don't see that often, like behind the scenes at DreamWorks or doing, color keying at Disney, or, I know a bunch of people that just kind of went off and filtered into industries where you're just not seen that much, paid well, but not.
Yeah, they're behind the scenes.
Yeah, you're behind the scenes, you're producing films and, stuff like that. So part of the goal of Watts Atelier Online was simply to keep and preserve that for future generations to learn from it after I'm not either informed to be able to do it anymore or just not. So I was racing the clock to try to put down certain things while I was still really exceptionally good at them before I had to let them go. Because at some point you can only hold on to so many languages at an elite level before the maintenance to maintain those becomes 100% of your time. Mm-hmm. To be good at inking, to be good at brush inking, quill inking, to be good at these obscure, not even obsolete, but highly nuanced languages that very few people will ever even try, much less master in present day society.
Which ones did you keep? So gouache, obviously charcoal, and
yeah, I mean, all of them have benefits that I wish I could keep. Like inking, I just got done teaching in person, and I said I wouldn't do it again because I did lay it down online, 40 hours of it. No, there was a couple kids in there that were really adamant about wanting to go into comics, and I felt like, so I went and did it, for them, but it was cool. Yeah. It was cool. And again, now we only have 5-week terms. So it was like 5 weeks of ballpoint pen, 5 weeks of quill, and 5 weeks of brush, which normally that was all crammed into a 10-week term. So it was actually kind of more leisurely to do it that way. Yeah. It's nice to have like 5 full weeks of just doing ballpoint pen instead of 2 days or two sessions out of 10 weeks or something to do that.
I just realized the way that you think of charcoal drawing and the way you teach it, you can go into inking or oil painting from that really easily.
It's really weird the things you pick up from these more esoteric languages. It's very similar to, like, say, is Latin Latin's a dead language? Is it really? Or is every word that we have in the English language mostly derived from Latin derivatives? And if you broke down a word, you can understand the definition of it without even knowing it, just by the Latin. Break it apart and go, oh, boom, boom, boom. Oh, I know what that word means. Yeah. I mean, it's really still a very useful, parts of it are very useful. I remember I took a simple Latin class my senior year, they made us, and I can still break a lot of words down just by using some of that. And so when I look at like inking, I kind of think of it like Latin. It's like, well, it's a dead language to some degree in current, current comics or even industries because people digitally ink or whatever. Brush inking is definitely not very often taught well. Not like Joseph Clement Cole, Wrightson, Frazetta, Booth, Charles Dana Gibson. I mean, all the greats that really mastered it. But the can that it gives you and the ability to think through problems ahead of time and to pre-run your decision making, it's unparalleled for teaching that. So if you say an oil, I'm going to put that note down correct. Is it really correct? No, because you're going to blend that with that, and that's going to blend with that, and that's going to give you that, which is a blasphemized version of what you really wanted. Now you got to go back and readjust that note back to where it should have been after the fact. Or you could premeditate those moves, push the chroma on it ahead of time, then blend the two together and come out exactly where you wanted to be. Be a lot faster painter. If you can think 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 steps ahead of where you're at.
And that's what you do.
That's what I do. Yeah. So that's why I'm a fast painter. I mean, people say, why do you paint so? How do you paint so fast? It's like, because I've just trained myself to think constantly like a chess match, 5 strokes or 5 steps ahead of myself. And
oh, shit. So wait, you're like an infinite step ahead of everyone else. You're always 5 steps ahead of yourself. You're like...
You always have to go there, don't you? Twist it up. No. But it is an interesting thing if you think about it. Like these are the things that I kind of bump into that I'm like, oh, that's a really fascinating way to think about things, because I don't read that in any book that I've, no one's told me that. No one says that. They just say, put it down right the first time and you're good to go. And I go, is that really true? Is that really true? If you never touch it again, maybe it's true, but not if you do any manipulation with it.
Well, that's the approach.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be true. It's just the way you approach it of trying to get it as close as possible to be correct. Then
so I guess I'm saying but to be more, and one of the things that like I did as far as teaching a class that would help cultivate that was, okay, let's do gesture painting. We're going to do 1 hour paintings, portraits. Now you got 1 hour, boom, 40 minutes to 1 hour. Done. Next one. You have no time to think. You have no time to sit and be perfect. You have to generalize everything. You have to kind of get it in the ballpark. You got to manipulate, push, idealize. And so that helps to cultivate that system for more feeling painting. That doesn't mean you don't do your 200-hour efforts, your 100-hour efforts, studio paintings and things like that. That needs to happen also. So you got to bring those two together. And so I think the more I learn about teaching, the more I realize how cool it can be and how complex it can be if you want to like knit it together in a certain way. And I think that's, again, I don't know. I just look at all the people that have come out of our atelier over the years and how good they are and the consistency factor of that. And it's definitely, there's some, I wouldn't say there's a formula, but there's some way that it's actually working out that way. You know, I mean, that it keeps producing people of that caliber without it being hyper formulaic or formula. It's more formulaic. It's based in formula, but not a formula.
Yeah.
That's where I kind of run into some issues, not even issues, but sometimes with more the structured site size stuff or stuff where you get a lot of people that paint almost identical. They're good, but they don't have a lot of, the individuality is not quite as distinct when you really break it down that way, where I like to see everybody kind of go off in completely different directions, but be highly skilled. Whether it's like, if you look at Meadow, you look at you look at me, you look at Eric, you look at all these different people, there's no one that looks alike, really. You don't say they're all good, but you don't say, yeah, they all look like they use the same palette and same color feel. No one. Everyone's totally all over the place, all really good. And I think that, like, there's certain schools where I say, oh, I know that school because everybody paints with the same palette and they all have the same color feel. Looks like just stamped out about 20 of them. It's fascinating. But it's not like, I don't think that's the point of a school, really. I mean, you give them enough structure, but then you want to develop individuality along with it.
Hi, this is Marshall Vandruff. If you want to study the great drawings of Heinrich Klei, hosted by me, the recordings are ready. Go to marshallart.com.
One last thing about Reilly, and then we can move on. Some people think that Reilly isn't really for drawing from imagination, that it's like, it's for you observe and then you like find the flow. But eventually, as you learn to break down something into its abstraction, it really does help to actually then draw that thing from imagination, right?
Yeah, I think the imagination thing is one of the hardest things you could do. And whether you're reverse engineering like an idea or finding the idea in some abstract way to invent it, that's what I always run into problems with. But I think having abstractions firmly imprinted in your mind for all these different angles, from usually quick sketch is one of the best ways to do that, right? Because you just copious amounts of drawings from all these different angles and so that you can kind of see it in your mind's eye. I think that's where having that library of remembrances is another thing I talk about a lot, which is just successes and failures, but the remembrance of it and the ability to not only retain that remembrance, but to be able to have access to it years later is hard. And so when someone invents, I'm always curious, like whether it's a Karl Kopinski or whether it's like maybe like Kim Jung-ji, those guys, I mean, they're elite inventors, right? So, and then you've got people like, again, Frazetta and people like that. Where and how are those ideas generations appearing on the page? I mean, is it through abstractions of scribbles that are then formulated into ideas, or is it an idea already fully realized in the mind that then is built off of those concepts on a page? I don't do it that way. I don't have a great visual memory, honestly. I don't see things clearly at all.
Well, when we use the Reilly method in life drawing, we're using it to help us observe and put things down from observation.
Yeah.
But I think like one thing that Court did in his caricature course that I thought was pretty cool was he used it not as step number one, but at a later stage to bring his things together. So he would, I mean, it's still from observation because he's looking at someone and he's caricaturizing them, but he wasn't using Reilly in the beginning. He was being a lot more loose with his exploration. So he's adding a lot more imagination to push and exaggerate things. But then in that stage where he's, where he allows himself to explore, a lot of things are broken, right? Because he's just pushing and pulling and everything's just kind of like all over the place. On top of it, then he used Reilly rhythms to bring things together.
I remember when Court came in and studied with us for years, he was already huge into distortion without the structure, right? Without that rhythm knowledge, right? That's a dangerous place to be. It really is. But
Reilly brought it in.
Yeah. Like, so when with the whole, I remember how difficult it was not breaking him of that, but allowing his structure to go back to accurate, to go back to distortion, right? And that's something that I always cautioned with a lot of the caricature artists that I met was it's better to go from realism to abstraction than it is from abstraction to realism, I think. I mean, like if you learn how to draw through heavy distortion, it's hard to see accurate anymore because you never saw it in the first place, really. You never were trained to see it in the first place. So now you've got to go back, unlearn or put on the hold a lot of those distortions in order to see accurately, which takes years to reprogram. Then bring that back in, the distortion, which is what I think Court did masterfully. He got really good over the years he was with us. It was quite some time. But then he started to do kind of like, again, I think the abstraction is perfectly tailored to heavy caricature because of it's taking the essence of why someone looks the way they do, finding those lines, accentuating those ones, playing other ones down to get a more exaggerated version of the thing you're seeing, right? So Sargent might be doing that 5% and Kruger might be doing that 95%, right? So again, he's on the far end. He can go both ways, which is another good artist I always thought was fascinating to see him be able to oscillate between really heavy distortion and really very accurate. And I think that's one of the reasons why he was so hyper successful and also one of my favorites. But Court was really fun to watch kind of bring that together in his own way as well. And that's, again, something where you know, as a teacher, you kind of see, you know, maybe somebody's got the cart so far in front of the horse, not by choice, but just because of how they learned or the access to learning that they had at the time. And now they're taking a new system and trying to, you know, kind of transcribe it into what they do. So I think Court did a wonderful job ultimately of marrying those two together. I always enjoyed how he riffed off the abstractions in his work once he got really good at it. Yeah.
All that was just to say that, like, it's not necessarily step one.
No. It'll kind of come in at different stages depending on what the impetus of your work is. You know, what are you trying to do, you know? But it's always present. For me, it's always in the background, easily accessible, ready to go. It's a filter I run most things through because I want the rhythm. I want to pull the most rhythm out of something as I can to keep it as lively as possible. Like, you know, a pose, if you take a pose and you already stiffen it up a bit, it's only going to get stiffer when you start putting the bumps and undulations and the lighting and the shading on. Yeah. So you want to push it as far as you can go before you dislocate it, break it, compound fracture it, whatever. You know, in the case of a human, you want to push that leg to where it feels like it's at the breaking point and then pull it back again.
I remember when you did that to me when I did a bad drawing.
Body slam.
Yeah, just compound fractures.
You know, if that's what it takes.
Shoulders. It worked.
Hey, look at you're still here. Yeah. And you healed up nicely, so don't worry about it. Don't worry about
bad posture, though. It's your fault.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
Okay, so hold on. Pause. Let's figure out where to go from here. We talk about challenges of online education or developing communities or the future of art education.
Okay, yeah, let's just combine all those into one.
What?
Let's go.
Which one?
All three.
No, which one do you prefer? We got to focus on one. How do I start? We need one door to get into the three.
Okay.
Just throw them all into the meat grinder and see what comes out.
Yeah, let's see what comes out. I think the way art community is building into the future of art education through what? Metaverse, blockchain. What are we looking at?
What? What is it? What? That was.
Yeah, see, I got you. I was going to say, for the future of education, where's it going? I don't know whether we're going to be having an atelier in Decentraland or what are we doing?
Decentraland?
I don't know. I mean, you know,
probably not.
Probably not. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, to me, I'm so fascinated by the whole AI is going to replace all of our jobs, you know, so I'm thinking, well, maybe, you know, so I've watched, you know, whether it's Midjourney or all these different things that are creating this cool imagery. And I actually really getting a kick out of it because to me, a lot of guys that were photo bashing were doing the same thing AI is doing to them, right? It's the same thing. It's like they were taking a lot of photos and splicing them together and putting some strokes on it and making it look like a painting, right? And that's the same thing AI is doing fundamentally. It's taking a bunch of ideas, conglomerating again, spitting out an image, right? So to me, it's just it's another iteration of photo bashing, you know, with an intelligent source behind it, which is cool because then I'm not a great idea guy personally. So I'd love an idea. Oh, let me feed in all this stuff. You kick something out and I'll paint it virtuosity. You know, I'll go and kick it out as a great painting. Awesome. And I can then manipulate anyway, because I do that anyway. I already kind of do that. We're all kind of AI. I mean, to me, it's like, I'm going to take that image, flip it on its side, turn it upside down, change the values on it, reinvent the arm. Now it's mine. But I mean, I do that every day, so that's just like, yeah, okay. So now you got a computer doing it faster or this way or whatever. But I'm really fascinated by its color harmonies and also how it spits out ideas to riff off of. And I think from that standpoint, as an idea generation tool for artists to collaborate with, I'm totally cool with it. I don't have the big like, oh my God, it's going to rip off my stuff and I'm going to be, I just never felt that way about it. But I do see, where some people are really intimidated by it, but I don't know if that's because, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, there's a lot to be intimidated by and a lot to fear, because if you just project forward, several decades, it changes everything and it's hard to predict, right? But we have very little control of it. And so it's like, well, all we could do is think about, okay, what can we do now to potentially benefit from it or not lose.
I was kind of always curious what your thoughts were on it, because you're pretty tech.
Mean, I'm on both sides. It's like,
so you feel like I do about it. It's like, it's a cool tool. I mean, I don't feel
right now it's a cool tool. And seriously though, I think most artists out there right now do not see what's actually happening, because these tools are being used in industries heavily now.
Yeah.
And everybody who's using it is afraid to show it, because they're going to get destroyed by online community.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you're evil if you use it.
Yeah.
Because you're supporting it and whatever. But like I've seen professional artists who are working on movies use it in an amazing way. Well, and not just like plugging in words.
No.
But really using it as a collaboration partner.
There's a few people I've been following that I'm just like, damn, that's good. I mean, it's really cool how they're using it.
And you can't tell that it's actually, like, you might see some stuff and you can't tell that it's actually like 40% AI, where they riffed off of it. They kind of did some stuff. They spent a few hours generating some stuff. They took pieces, did it, painted over it. And really, it was just a tool to enhance the creativity and to go through ideas a little bit faster. But it was still a lot of human effort. But
yeah. And I think also, do you think that this will reverse back around to hand-done art by a real human?
I don't know.
Be more valuable? I don't know.
No. I mean, that's the negative side of it, is that I think that over time, I think it will be more and more of the machine doing these things and less of the human.
But I mean, I'm saying, but wouldn't people then, do people always value the most finite resource? And if that finite resource is 5 people that can do it that are actual human and not replicants, and you got a replicant like Blade Runner painting, and it's not even a human, really? Is it going to be more valuable, or will somebody find, I want a real painting done by a real human, not a robot? Could that flip and say, that's the minor thing. Now I'll pay a lot of money for that, because there's only a handful of people that can even do that are real.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, so that's what I'm saying is, I mean, there'll be value still in being able to do it by hand, always, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, the industries that are going to use it most are the ones that don't really care about hand art anyway, which is the movie industry. They don't care that you do it by, they just want ideas. So of course they're going to want it as fast and quick as possible and easy to change. So that industry should be driven by AI, right? I mean, shouldn't it? Because that's what they care about. They don't care about you doing a cool piece of artwork for them.
Right. It depends on whose feelings you're prioritizing.
But I'm saying it's tailor-made for making movies, right?
Most of the public will benefit from it, because you'll have more movies being made. I'm just saying it seems like it's a better tool for that industry. So it's kind of like saying, and it could be better movies too. It's not just more. They could end up actually being better because.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that there's people that it may, make their skill in that obsolete because they were doing it in an old way. So they'll, I mean, that's always going to be the case for any technology, right? I mean, and it's not a bad thing necessarily, but I'm not condoning it because I don't use it really. I mean, I paint, right? So I'm the guy that's going to be not.
They'll come after you.
Yeah, I'm not using AI really because I don't have any interest. But I mean, but I am interested in it from the standpoint of, I use a projector occasionally, right? I mean, I don't see it as even evil. I know how to draw, right? So if my projector breaks, I can freehand it.
Right. That's the thing is that like online, we're seeing mostly non-artists using AI to create art.
Yeah.
And it usually it's pretty crappy. It's a very vanilla, like, yeah, that's clearly from the journey.
Yeah.
But then the stuff that's behind the scenes, where really serious professional artists who have been doing it for 30 years start using it.
Well, yeah, but that was
then it's like,
that was like Craig, that's like Craig Mullins, though, a good painter using digital. Of course, he's going to kick butt at it.
Right.
He knows how to paint. He knows how to color mix. He knows how to harmonize. He knows how to compose. He knows how to figure invent. He knows how to draw. So it's a tool to make his process quicker, more efficient, like a projector, like a camera, like anything. But does it replace him? No.
Well, not yet, but yeah.
Not yet.
Right now?
But that's what I'm saying. That is an industry that needs to worry about being replaced by AI. But I don't think fine art painting, oil painting is going to be replaced by a digital anything soon. I mean, there may be some, robot from Boston Dynamics or mechanic, whatever, painting it. Who knows? I mean,
I don't know.
But then who cares? I mean, that doesn't matter. I mean, it's still going to be your vision to paint things that are original that people want to buy. Prints are always going to be less than originals. I mean, I would imagine.
Well, that's because there's so clearly a difference between the two. A print and an original.
I know, but it's still, again, I mean, when you have like a billion robots all being able to paint at elite level, where's the value?
Well, does it then devalue the original? When, like, let's
I don't know. I mean, but then I'm saying people might flip back around and say, well, I want it done by a human hand. That's what I really want. Because
who would say that?
I don't know.
Are you talking about
maybe people
the
don't.
Kids born
maybe they don't care. Maybe they'll never. Yeah, maybe they'll never care. But then again, the society we'll live in is so different that it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah.
Because we'll come up with a new way. Because otherwise
they won't care.
Yeah, no, but I mean, then what would be the value of doing anything? I guess only things you'll really be doing are things for entertainment. So I paint at that high level. It'll be interesting to see if anybody will ever get to that high level when they're not motivated by having to make a living at it.
I think yes, because
you think that
I'm actually excited for. Well, I don't know if I'm excited. Maybe I'm excited about a time where people are drawing and painting and creating art
for the sheer love of it.
For the sheer love of it, in the same way that people dance, right?
Exactly.
You don't go dancing to make money. Well, some people do, of course, but most of humanity goes to dance because they like to move the body.
Exactly.
Right? It feels good. It's fun.
Yeah.
And drawing and painting is the same way. We, in our DNA, like to be creative and communicate with visual stuff. And it's fun. And I enjoy doing it. I know. I love it. And so
that's what I was just saying earlier is I want to get back to doing that without having to... I want to get back to painting the way I always did, which is for the love of it in the beginning, I mean, that's the whole point. So I think at some point, there will be a lot of replacement of jobs with robotics and AI, and they should be probably, because they're things that humans would be better apt doing more enrichful things with their time. Mm-hmm. If we can get to that point where we can allow them to do that and not have to do those other jobs, I don't know what that looks like. I mean, it's a big paradigm shift with, economics and finances and everything, financial systems and all that. So, and it's all coming. So, but I guess the fascination thing with me is how does that tie into art? Art's obviously it's such a visceral precursor to lots of things, right? It's usually a weather vane for a lot of stuff. Artists have always been, forward thinking, kind of ahead of the curve kind of thinkers. That's just the way they've always been throughout history, So
it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
If no human is doing art for the money anymore because any robot could just do it cheaper and faster.
Yeah.
But there's still people doing it for the enjoyment of it. I wonder if the human art will actually improve in quality.
That would be, it'd be a fascinating, it's a good question because again, throughout the beginning of time, I mean, everyone's been, whether it was Michelangelo was working for the church, right? He's motivated to do it because of money, right? Yeah. I mean, you had to make a living. Mm-hmm. So it just depended on where the money was at that time and who was paying for those kind of things. So it will be fascinating to see where art goes when it's really unbridled love of the craft or whatever of the form versus trying to monetize it. I don't know. I'm fascinated. That's why I was always kind of loved a lot of the Russian artists because they really were painting more, seemed like viscerally, not so much to try to sell something. It didn't seem like
it was a communist country.
That's what I'm saying. So I know. So the motivation was to paint. Yeah. You didn't have to design your shapes that much. You didn't have to over design them to try to sell a book cover or something.
Yeah. Was Feshin, was he selling a lot of stuff? Was he doing his paintings to sell them?
You mean towards the end of it? Yeah.
Back when he was already in the United States.
Yeah. I mean, I think he definitely did okay, I think, but it was never the motivating factor to what he did. He never, he'd paint a one-off painting and I'm sure there were 20 people that would have bought that thing. Did he paint 20 versions of it? No. It's like, that's one. done, not doing it again, not pandering.
Was he like in a gallery? Was he like in a gallery?
Yeah,
He was, okay.
I think so, yeah.
So he was...
Yeah, he did the show thing and he sold his work, but I don't think that was, again, that's one of the things I loved about him also, is he's just a very, I think, sincere love of the craft kind of painter, and a painter's painter, I guess is what they call him. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I love that about Schmidt. I love that about all those painters that really own the love of the craft. And again, there's nothing really fundamentally wrong with monetizing your gift, but that's for each person to individually determine what level that feels good for them, and how much compromise with their vision they're going to do for that. And, what industries they're going to put themselves into and put themselves through. So I think that's a fascinating dialogue, or I like to have that conversation with young students, because I want them to prepare for an enriching career, but also one that is based in reality of having to actually, solve somebody else's problem that's not yours in a creative way that isn't totally your idea, that you maybe not totally agree with, but still have to execute it well.
Yeah.
Which is always a compromise, for not be more, the illustrative arts, where you're working for a client and that client is got an idea and maybe it's not the greatest idea, but you got to execute it, and they think it's the next second coming, but you're like, not really, but I got to paint that thing to be awesome. And I'm going to have to compromise my vision of what I think it should be, because they're the ones paying. So they're the ones that are always right. So I think that's where you differentiate and start going into more fine arts and say, no, I'm going to paint what I want to paint, and then I'm going to try to sell it. Yeah, whether people like it or not. It's just, so I don't know. There's all these nuanced aspects, but I guess when we get back to it, really it's about the Reilly Method.
And we've come full circle.
It's a rhythm.
It's all about the Reilly Method, baby. Come on. Come on. That's what we started. Yeah. AI, all that stuff doesn't matter. Yeah. It's all Reilly.
Do you think it's going to replace us as teachers?
I don't know. Maybe. The human, I think there'll be a backlash at some point, and being human is going to be really special again. To be a human is going to be something special. It always was. Replicants, anything that you replicate as a machine is a machine. It's not a person. It never will be. It's a machine. It could be very advanced. It could be incredibly intelligent, way more than we are.
Yeah, it's kind of lame to be a human right now, huh?
It's not in vogue. Really?
It's not.
It's not in vogue.
Oh, you're a human?
It doesn't seem to be. It doesn't seem to be.
Oh, all that meat?
Yeah, dude. No, we want
meat.
Yeah. No, it's funny. But I'm trying to keep a sense of humor about the whole thing, because people are they're just losing it, People are just going off the rails, and I'm just like, just calm down, we'll get it all figured out. We're a resourceful little bunch, down here. We'll figure it out. But it's fascinating. It's hard not to, think about it. You've got kids coming in, they're panicking that they're not going to have jobs, and they're freaking out about everything. And I'm like, well, definitely, I kind of heard this back when digital painting came in, same thing,
I feel like this is constantly happening. There's never going to be a generation that is like, okay, I'm going to now have the exact same career as my father.
Nor should it be.
Mother.
Nor should it be.
Because even when I was starting to get into, I was like 6 years at Watts, and I was like, all right, I think I'm going to try to make some money now. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to get into the gallery because that's what everyone's doing.
Yeah.
And then the economy crashed, right?
Yeah,
and then nobody gave a shit about buying paintings from galleries anymore.
Yeah.
And that's when the internet was starting to become a thing. And I was like, wait,
but are
things changing? Do I have to figure this out and do something new? Yeah.
Yeah.
That world is gone.
Well, it wasn't necessarily gone. It's just a cycle.
Well,
They're cycles, right? You still
it's pretty much gone.
But if you talk to Jeremy Lipkin, he's still doing fine. You talk to Morgan, he's still doing fine. Ian's still doing fine.
It's still here for 1% of the people.
But it always was only for 1% of the people.
No, but 1% of what it was for back then.
Well, I suppose.
Back then it was you're an artist, you're going to do that. Now it's no, you're not. You're going to go work on movies or something.
Yeah, I suppose. But I still know that, I don't know. I think I'm a contrarian. So whatever everybody else is doing, I'm going the other direction. That's just what I'm doing.
How many young people that are getting real good do you see now trying to get into a gallery versus selling their stuff on Instagram.
I don't think it's so much getting into a gallery, but it's still doing the same thing, but taking more control as an artist because you have more.
That's what I mean. It's a new way of being an artist.
No,
and
you
selling
definitely
your stuff, making money.
No, I'm just saying that, but I'm saying that the ownership of your art and the way to monetize it is going to change in the favor of creatives. Period. It will. It has. So that's all great stuff. We should be rejoicing, not being all freaked out about it. Relax.
Well, we don't have a choice. That's my.
Well, no,
my
but
point
the
is,
choice, but this choice is going to probably,
changing.
But there's so much good. Like I was just talking to someone in my class yesterday about Pinterest, and like, I don't think you fully realize what it was like to try to find reference pre-internet.
yeah, that's the thing. Is
I don't think anybody gets that
about things changing.
Yeah, I'm like,
is that they were not around before things.
My
changed
dad
before them.
literally would sit at night, cut up magazines, put them in folders. Guy with glass, bending over, guy with glass, and put them in files. Over? And that was. That was manual Pinterest, right? It was manual Pinterest. That was what you had to create.
What kind of folders did you?
It's called a morgue file. I'm just saying you had to cut up. You had to have reference for everything.
Found a stash,
which you just okay. You had to go there, didn't you? National Geographic, it's pretty racist. But no, you'd cut up like cut up magazines and you put them into your binders. You'd have a morgue file. That's what they called it. And it was a file cabinet full of every conceivable thing. So if you had an illustration, you would go there, sift through it, pull out your folder, and that would have your reference pool for that thing. Right? Now that was pre-you. You don't even probably remember that.
I had that too because I saw you doing it.
Exactly.
So I did it. I have it right here. Oh yeah, right there. Right there.
But you know what I'm saying though. So I mean, like, there's so much to be thankful for, and so much. I just don't think people realize how hard it was to get work at all. So now, people are complaining about this AI stuff. It's like, dude, you have so much in your to take that you have at your resources to make it. Way more than I ever did, or Eric, or any of us. So my dad. So I just look at it and I go, I think it's all relative to the time you grow up, but it's really a lot to look. I think it's an incredible time to be alive as an artist. I think it's one of the best times in history. You can monetize it easier than ever, but you gotta have something to offer skill wise. That's where we come in. You educate people so that they have some skills so that they can then monetize using this new system that we have in place. If you're just pumping out a bunch of mediocre stuff, you might be able to find some kitschy little way to make money at it, but ultimately that's going to be short-lived probably. Ultimately, it will, the good stuff will sift to the top. It always does. So I think just be really skilled, work really hard, train yourself in the legacy of the past masters if you can, and then use all the technology at your disposal to springboard off of and kill it. Yeah. I mean, that's the way to do it. It's the way it's always been, So, but I think that the key thing for the younger people watching is don't try to sidestep getting good, right? There is no fast AI way to get good. You can't download a chip in your brain on how to draw like Reilly or me or Stan. Not yet. And when that time comes, there'll be a different dialogue to have. And that dialogue will be very much centered around other things if we make it through that transition as a species. We may not. Who cares? Well, no, but I mean, the universe isn't going to cry it's going to shed any tears. It'll just start over again and be fine with it, right? It's just a creative inflow and outflow. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to say that I'm wishing that upon humanity, but humanity needs to grow up.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
It needs to grow up. I mean, you're playing with fire with these tools you guys are creating. So, either mature and evolve, as a consciousness and a species, or be left behind or be eradicated. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It is, and I'm just saying, I mean, we're all being called to step up. So step up in your, and become a more conscious being and see if we can use this technologies to further our
that's my big thing here is that there's going to be a lot of bad stuff that comes out of these tools, as any powerful new tool is always bad stuff in the way it's used. But why just let the bad people use it for bad? Because you could also go and try to use it for good.
Well, yeah, there's always going to be that paradigm or that fight between good and evil, right and wrong, up and down, left and right, straight and curved. I mean, it's the fighting balances. It'll always be there, right? You can't do one without the other. But to think that all this technology is just going to ultimately be evil. Yeah, it could be used for that. And it probably will for some time until we horrify ourselves and have to go back and readjust it like we always do. It's like, oh my God, now we got to fix it. I mean, we should be putting all those rules in place right now, but nobody is. I mean, AI is just running rampant. Yeah. Nobody's got any.
Do you think it should be paused? Like how?
Well, I think they need to put some parameters around it. I mean, as far as
they definitely do, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to until it's too late, and then they'll have to go back and reverse do it if there's time to do that. But we'll see.
Because all the politicians are 80 years old, they don't understand it.
There's some truth in that. Yeah, we need some younger, more intelligent, kind of forward-thinking people involved. But I don't know. I mean, for me, it's more. I don't think the technology should be something that we should be mad about. It's our use of it and our inability to actually be conscious enough to use it that we should be more taking responsibility for, and that's up to each one of us to up level in our own ways to be able to then be part of that dialogue and be, and not be left behind. If you're left behind, it's going to be because you're unwilling to evolve.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's just easy. It's very simple. I mean, there may be some people that literally can't for some reason, and those people we should probably help along or have some way to help them. But the ones that are capable should step up, and be part of this, learn to be a more mature version of our species. I don't know. But art has always been that dialogue. I think for me, that's what I'm saying is my art now is more motivated by like, how can I bring more awareness into my art, not just more technical prowess? I mean, but I think for many of you that are watching this, you're still in the technical development stage. And that's where platforms like mine, platforms like Stan's, platforms like the other ones out there are going to help you to get that grounding so that you can bring a more mature dialogue to what's happening, because the dialogue that's happening around you technologically is becoming so advanced that you're going to have to up level in order to be able to be part of it.
Right.
I think it's just more, trying to, up level myself, and I think if enough people do that, maybe it'll be the 1,000 monkey thing, where it's like gets to 1,000 monkeys, then it triggers something and everybody changes all simultaneously like that. I don't know. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. There's this rule that like when certain monkeys, like a community of monkeys learn a certain thing, when it hits a certain tipping point, consciously, they automatically all start doing it.
Oh, okay.
Regardless. So you got to hit that tipping point where a certain amount of them reach that point. The rest of them automatically adjust instantaneously. Some
pressure?
I don't know, quantum mechanics or something. I don't know what it is.
Mechanics, yeah.
It's something,
collective unconscious.
Yeah, right. It's some kind of interesting thing. It's look it up. It's fascinating. Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe
so even monkeys that are not in communication.
Yeah.
What? No.
It's like that thing of crossword puzzles. If you try and do a crossword puzzle right when it's first released,
so your cameraman gets it.
And then if you do it later, after a bunch of people in the world have already solved it, more people solve it faster, like statistically.
Stan, you gotta up level for these interviews, because we're talking about stuff that just, I mean, let's bring it back to Reilly.
Wait,
let's bring it back to Reilly. Reilly
no,
Method.
Hold up.
Let's circle back. It's all about Reilly. We're bringing it back to Reilly. We don't need to, not the 1,000 monkeys. Forget about the 1,000 monkeys.
No. The crossword, the 1,000 monkeys. Are we literally talking about quantum mechanics here?
I don't know.
Where, like, the atoms or the...
No, it's a certain thing with consciousness. Like, theoretically, if a certain amount of people can reach a certain level of consciousness, all of humanity will up level at the same time.
But even when there's no connection, because
exactly. It's just
there's different states that just get switched.
We're all connected, right? It's just an energetic field, right? So if you can get
this chair is,
I know this chair is ridiculous, but if you get it to that level, theoretically, maybe it'll just trigger and everybody will up level at the same time. I mean, again, it's probably gonna have to come down to something like that, because if we don't, I don't know. That's my hopes. I don't know. So be one of those 1,000 monkeys, Sam. That's what you got to be.
Well, apparently, I don't have a choice.
Well, you do. You don't have to go do the hard work and try to up level and learn all this stuff. And
well, eventually I'll just be one of the monkeys that...
Yeah. It'll click for you and you'll be okay. So don't worry about it. We got you. We got your back.
What kind of monkey do you want to be, Steve?
What kind of monkey do you... I don't know. This conversation, this has gone way... I think we're probably done, don't you think?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, we've come full circle.
We're just chatting. But yeah, you can cut that stuff out. I don't know if that's what you think.
That's the only stuff that's good.
That's the only stuff that's good. What was that all about? Oh my God.
That's the stuff people like.
I was so conscious the whole time. I was trying to be really on point and hear you. I throw in this little weird thing at the end and you're like, I know.
And I'm like, gold. Gold. Let's do it. Finally.
Just title this one the 1,000 Monkey interview or something.
1,000 Monkeys Advanced Fundamentals.
Yeah.
I'd click it.
What the fuck does that mean?
I would click it.
I would totally click that with Jeff Watts.
Yep. All right, Stan.
So yeah, where can people get your Reilly course?
So so again,
PROKO.com/Watts.
we got our Reilly course on Stan's platform, the PROKO platform, and then if you want to learn more about the 3,000 hours that we have of me teaching this kind of stuff, it's on Watts Atelier.
Is it really 3,000 hours now?
Almost 2,500 probably.
2,500.
I don't know. It's up there.
WattsAtelier.com.
Okay, so yeah, if you want to learn www.wattsatelier.com, you can go on there. We have boot camps, we have in person, we have streaming, we have thousands of hours of content taking you from from very beginning to very advanced. So if you want to learn any of that stuff, you can come through us. Complements really well with what Stan's doing. I think both platforms have definitely kind of this symbiotic relationship between the concepts, since we both worked together for a lot of years. So it's nice, it's a nice bridge. There's lots of cool things on both of them and different avenues for learning. So I would say the one that we just came out with, the Reilly class, is there's a lot of great demos on there. We picked some of our best guys doing their best stuff. So I think it really represents well that particular method of figure drawing. So if you're interested in it, go on, you can grab it there. And if you say, hey, I want to learn even more about that, Stan's got a lot going on around it. And then you can also pop over to us. We have different tiers price wise. So you can do monthly training. You can do more ones that you get a lot more input personally with streaming. It's a lot of different options. So yeah, that's kind of how it works. And again, we've been doing it for 30 years. So we definitely know how to get people good. We've gotten people good regularly. I think there's a really cohesive curriculum, which is kind of rare. It's hard to find. Phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, landscape, portrait, still life, figure, landscape, narrative, anatomy. I mean,
you're ramping right back up, Jeff. You're taking us right back into the episode. You're like making a full loop backwards again, man. We're trying to slide out. Damn.
What? It was really fun though, just sitting and chatting with you about all this stuff.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Anytime. And again, I hope we can do more. Maybe just go out and do some painting.
Yeah,
some plein air, dude. With nobody. No filming, no nada. Just mono. Just beer, paint, trees, rivers.
Well, we're recording in mono, so I think we are mono. Yeah, we don't do the stereo thing.
We don't do this.
That's the end of it.
That's the end of it. Thanks, guys, for joining. Hope you had a good time. Cheers.